Hello and welcome to the Middle East Report. In today's programme, we'll be discussing the importance of saving lives in Israel as we credit the incredible work being carried out by Magen David Adom, Israel's national emergency, as they respond to terrorist attacks, they respond to rocket and missiles attacks in Israel and other emergencies, and this is their story. To discuss the importance of saving lives in Israel, I'm joined by Daniel Berger, who is the Chief Executive of Magen David Adom UK, and Barbara Dingle, who's the Executive of Christian Friends of Magen David Adom. Both of you, hello and welcome to the Middle East Report.
Hello there.
Thank you for having us.
It's a pleasure. And Daniel, it's great to have the Chief Executive of Magen David Adom on the Middle East Report. Can you share with our viewers something of your Jewish background and pretty much how you got involved in the very important work of saving lives in Israel through Magen David Adom?
Of course, and thank you for having me here. I've been aware of Magen David Adom for pretty much my whole life. It's something that my friends and family and peers have supported amongst the years, and I remember growing up going to young Magen David Adom events, and I was originally in the retail world, and a few years ago I made the leap of faith, as one says, into another grant-making foundation. And a few years after that, I got approached to come and take over from my predecessor. They were looking for succession for him. He was retiring. And it was an easy decision. It was easy to say yes, because to me, it's such a fantastic cause. It's not a Jewish ambulance service. It represents Israeli society. It's totally pluralistic and helps anyone, whether it be you or I, who, God forbid, need an ambulance out there, right the way through to Israeli society at large. And as a result of that, as I say, it was an easy decision to say, I'm going to come on board, and this is the organisation that I would be proud to and look forward to representing in the UK.
Excellent. And Barbara, I've got to say personally, a big thank you to you, because you've helped me to provide some fantastic guests
My pleasure.
for the Middle East Report, and I know that you do incredible work within the Jewish community. But can you share for our viewers a little bit about your background, how the Lord touched your heart, gave you a love for Israel and the Jewish people, and share something about the very important work you're doing amongst the Jewish community here in Britain?
Yes, of course. I think it really goes back to having a praying grandmother. That's a fantastic start in life. And I was at a school where we had a lot of godly influence. And in particular, we had a scripture teacher who started every lesson by drawing a very rough map of Israel on the blackboard, the coast, the Bay of Haifa, then the Sea of Galilee, Jordan River, the Dead Sea. And a sort of subliminal level, this map, every lesson, made an impact on me. Little did I know that years later, that land I would come to know so well and really love so much, and all the people that live in the land.
Excellent. And when did the Lord really begin to touch your heart? And sense explain, because you're involved in so many different things, aren't you?
Mm-hmm.
You're involved in Magen David Adom, you're involved with Christian Friends of Yad Vashem, and lots of other very, very important causes for Israel.
I think a key moment was I grew up in Worcestershire in the Midlands, and I used to go to a Christian camp called Good News, which was run by Don Double, the Three Counties Showground in Malvern. And every other year, Derek Prince, who was a great Bible teacher, used to speak, and he came and he would always speak on Israel for one night. And I remember there was a particular night he spoke on Israel about the past, present, the future, God's plans for Israel. And at the end of the meeting, as was his way, he invited people to stand and let the Holy Spirit bless the message. And I remember standing up, and I didn't really feel anything at that time, but I knew I had to go to Israel. And it took several years, but eventually I went. And the Bible says, you know, God blesses those who bless Israel. And I can just really encourage people that that verse has so worked out in my life. So many doors have opened, and I've been very blessed.
Thank you. And Daniel, can you explain to us some of the great work being carried out by Magen David Adom? Because it translates into English really as the red shield of David, or something to that effect. And explain some of the services also being carried out by Magen David Adom.
That's an easy, but it's an enormous question to answer as well. To start with, when you ask the question, particularly to the Jewish community, what does one think of when you say Magen David Adom? People immediately think of ambulances whizzing by on the street. It's Israel's national ambulance service, dial 101 in Israel, they're equivalent to 999 over here, and you get Magen David Adom at the end of the phone. It is, without a doubt, the fastest and biggest response ambulance service in Israel. But that actually is only a very small part of its work, although we all expect and see it as the organisation saving lives on the streets, whether it be a road traffic accident or a terror attack or something else. But another big part of its work is it runs Israel's blood bank. Now, if you think of a country the size of Israel, with all of its political and geographical issues, it is responsible for 95% of the blood. So every year, Magen David Adom is responsible for collecting 300,000 units of blood and storing it for the entire population of Israel. Now, included within that population is Israel's defense force. So anytime there's a war or anytime there's a situation escalating, they have to really ramp up those blood supplies. And that is an enormous part of its role that perhaps isn't really known or thought about across the diaspora societies. And then, interestingly, back in 2005, it was finally admitted as a member of the International Committee of the Red Cross Red Crescent movement. And that has put it, in my mind anyway, on an entirely different platform. It's now an international aid organisation taking Israeli aid around the world.
Fantastic. And we've got a clip to go to now that looks at some of the incredible work being carried out by Magen David Adom UK.
Magen David Adom is taking part in this national exercise, performing throughout the country, all the regions, all the stations, simulating various types of national emergencies that are, some of them are war-related and other that are affected due to the escalation. And Israel is under missiles attack from the north and from the south, and the entire Israeli population is functioning under war, but our duties are way beyond, because at the same time that we are dealing with the emergency war-related situations, we continue to provide the regular services to the public.
במגן דוד אדום, אני עובד במגן דוד משנת 2000. אנחנו נאלצים כל יום לטפל בפיגועים. פיגועים במיוחד לי, כפרמדיק ערבי שעובד במד"א, הקושי הוא כפול. ובהרבה פיגועים הייתי נאלץ לעשות אינטובציה לפצוע קשה, ומאחוריי צעקות של למשל מוות לערבים, וזה המציאות במדינה. קיבלתי במיר סקריאה על תאונת דרכים בכניסה לאריאל.
I've been driving home back from my parents' house on Road 5 when a Palestinian terrorist threw us large stones on my car, causing me to bump into a truck. I'm hearing all the time my daughters screaming behind me. And next to me was Adele was sit next to me. She was with a lot of blood.
אנחנו רואים תאונות דרכים, מתאונה כזו לא יוצאים בחיים.
And I'm all the time screaming and saying that I'm okay.
הבנתי שמאחורה שתי ילדות שהן פצועות בינוני היו בהכרה. חילצו אותן, פינינו אותן עם שני אמבולנסים שהיו במקום. אני ידעתי שיש תינוקת לכודה ליד הכיסא של הנהג. האמא הייתה לכודה, אמנם הייתה בהכרה.
They cut the car and took her out. I know in my heart she's not living.
ללא נשימה, ללא דופק, מלא דם. זה השניות שיש לך אותה בידיים, ואין, רק אתה שמה בשבילה. אף אחד לא יכול לעזור לה. אם אתה לא פועל עכשיו, כאן ומיד, אז אתה מאבד אותה.
He jumped her pulse to 150 and he took her and hurried up to the hospital and bring her alive to the hospital.
לפני שנכנסנו לבית חולים, הזיזה יד אחת, אבל היה לה איזושהי תזוזה של יד. אמרתי, על זה אני אתפס. אני לא אשכח את התזוזת יד הזו. נכנסנו לחדר טראומה, ואז הגיעה רופאה בכירה, והגיעו כמה רופאים שחיכו לנו, ואז מסתכלים עליה, ושמעו את הסיפור, ואז אמרו אם יש מישהו מהמשפחה, כי אין מה לעשות. היא הזיזה יד, היא תחיה. בואו נמשיך.
I can say that he is our angel. He is the one who saved my daughter, okay? And it's not connected to that he is Arab and I'm Jewish. It's not important this time. He do his best and he saved her. And I really appreciate his work in my heart, all my life.
The threats on Israel are giving us a higher risk potential. The extent, the danger, the potential is much higher. And we have to work much harder to prepare our teams, to equip them in order to be able to respond the way we know how, and the way that we train our teams to respond and to be ready in any given minute.
Over the weekend, terrorists broke into the home of an Israeli family, Ruth and Udi Fogel. This happened on Friday. It was a night of bloodshed.
יום שגרתי אחד, יום יפה, יום אביב, ופתאום יש את הכריזה בתחנה, צוות אתן אריאל נסיעה. אנחנו יוצאים לאתן, ככל שאנחנו מתקדמים, אנחנו מרגישים, כמו שמקבלים דיווחים, אנחנו מרגישים שמדובר במקרה קשה. נכנסתי לתוך הבית, ואז נחשפתי לזוועה. נכנסתי לחדר הראשון, ראיתי ילד קטן דקור בכל הגוף, ולא היה מה לעשות. עברתי לחדר השני, ראיתי עוד ילד דקור, שחוט, וכל המיטה שלו מלא אדם, וגם לא היה מה לעשות. ועברתי לעוד חדר, ומצאתי אבא, אמא, ותינוקת בת חודשיים, כולם דקורים, וגם לא היה מה לעשות. לא הצלחנו לעשות כלום. את הציוד כמו שירדנו איתו, נשאר ארוז. וראיתי את המשחקים, וכל המשחקים מגואלים בדם של ילדים קטנים. האבא מחזיק את התינוקת, בת חודשיים במיטה, ושניהם הרוגים. כנראה בתנוחה שהוא ניסה כנראה לגונן עליה. חזרנו לתחנה. אני זוכר שחנינו בתחנה את האמבולנס. אני לא ירדתי מהאמבולנס, נשארתי עד סוף המשמרת. אולי כמה שעות ישבתי באמבולנס, חשבתי עם עצמי. שבא להחליף אותי בבוקר הפרמדיק, החליף אותי למעלה ואני ברחתי הביתה.
The face of Magen David Adom in Israel is a very beautiful face. A lot of people in Israel appreciate their work, and I think they will do the best, also in the future, all the time.
איפה שאני נופל, אני מטפל, אני עושה את המקסימום. וחונכתי בארגון הזה, ולמדתי, והחינוך שהטמיעו בתוכי, זה לעשות את המקסימום. בסוף לא משנה מה יזרקו עלינו, בפעילויות טרור. קונבנציונלי, לא קונבנציונלי, אנחנו מוכנים לכל תרחיש.
As we can see in that clip there, it's incredibly hard for so many Israeli paramedics having to deal with the horrendous terrorist attacks that we see in Israel, and certainly the murder of innocent children and how they've had to respond to such emergencies. And, our hearts must go out to these people and our prayers must go out, and also our support as well. Daniel, that was a very emotional, very emotive and very moving clip that really does show the importance of the superb work the organisation is doing. And yet our own ambulance service is doing an incredibly good job here in Britain, but they don't have to deal with the threat of terrorism and rockets and missile attacks. I mean, how do you actually prepare some of your paramedics to go into situations like going into the home of the Fugel family and seeing them all murdered, and then all the counselling and work that's needed to recover from that, so they carry on and carry on the very important work they're doing?
I think it's a very good question, and having had the privilege of being out there when we made this video and having spent time with Maharia, he is an amazing man, and he is always in the wrong place at the wrong time, if one can say that. And this is just one or two of so many terrible, terrible situations he's been through, particularly terror attacks. I think the answer to your question is you can't prepare. You don't know what's around the corner. What he didn't say, and he told me off camera, was he didn't know. He battled whether he should be in there or not. He didn't know whether the terrorist with the knife was still in the room. So on the one hand, we see this man go in and try and save and talk about the massacre. Yet on the other, he's putting his own life on the line as well. It's terrible that every ambulance in Israel has bulletproof vests and bulletproof helmets on board. That's standard issue when we distribute ambulances and issue ambulances to Israel. It shouldn't have to be that way. And when they talk about putting their lives on the line, and I appreciate that other ambulance services and paramedics put their lives on the line in different ways, it is an horrendous situation. Interestingly, I met one of their trainers recently. He's actually a prisoner of war. He was captured and held for 3.5 years in Egypt. He was shot down over the Sinai, and he was released as part of the Yom Kippur War deal. And he's now made a life for himself, training people in how to endure and work under extreme stress. And he is one of MDA's key trainers for this exact point.
Amazing. And Barbara, you're very much involved with the Christian Friends of Magen David Adom. How did that come about, and also why as well?
Well, Simon, I think there are two things. My own involvement is that I work for a Jewish family office in central London. I work for wonderful people who have a lot of business interests in Israel. And like a lot of Jewish people, they're very generous towards charities. And they support Magen David Adom. And about 6 or 7 years ago, they gave an ambulance, which I thought was a wonderful thing to do. I mean, imagine if people in the UK gave an ambulance to bless their local community. But we don't have to here. In Israel, they do. And I was involved with the logistics of arranging the dedication service for this ambulance. Again, that's another lovely trait of Jewish people. You have a dedication ceremony. And it was in Jerusalem. And it was lovely photos, a very special ceremony. And little did I know that 6-7 years later, earlier this year, I would be involved in a ceremony. They gave a motorbike, and the time came for the dedication service, which was Passover of this year, and I happened to be in Israel at the time. So I was given the great honour of standing in for them.
Amazing. And what has been the response? I mean, how much does it actually cost to have one of the, to actually, say, buy one of the motorbikes or to buy an ambulance?
An ambulance is about £40,000 now. It varies a bit. There's a standard ambulance or a bit more. Or one can give a motorbike. Motorbikes, of course, can get to accidents or emergencies a lot quicker if the traffic's heavy than an ambulance.
Yeah,
but there's a big scale of things one can give.
Because I think I've seen this week, Christine Dog on a motorbike. And
That's
also
right.
John Hagee's ministry
Yes.
have also donated to an ambulance in Israel with their name on it. So
That's
it's quite
it.
incredible.
I'm a trustee of Christine's ministry, Exploits Ministry, which is a wonderful organisation with a love for all the people of Israel. So it fits very well with Magen David Adom.
Okay, very good. And we've got a clip to go to now that explores some of the work being carried out by Christian friends of Magen David Adom.
You can bless Israel by supporting Magen David Adom in helping to save lives.
Magen David Adom is so vital in a country so small. Actually, in Israel, every day there's an emergency of one kind or another.
These people put themselves often in harm's way to save another life. And of course, as Christians, we believe in the saving of lives.
It's important that there be a preparation and that there always be a readiness to provide the care that is needed.
24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
I'm so impressed with Magen David Adom, their almost instant response to any situation.
Christians have an opportunity to help the Jewish people save lives.
I know as a Christian, Jesus, his purpose was to save lives.
Every man, every woman, every child is made in the image of God. Life is so valuable to God. It should be to us as well.
Magen David Adom is always there to put that arm around them and to minister to them both physically and emotionally.
I've got kids, I've got grandkids, and I think about my own children. And I'm so thankful that Magen David Adom is there for them to save their lives in a critical situation.
Your voice will go a long way in building relations and lifting Israel up.
Saving a life is about being our brother's keeper.
It's about making a difference.
It's all about having purpose.
It's about working together.
It's about choosing life rather than choosing death.
It's prayer in action.
We pray that you will support it and get behind it.
So we want to bless Israel in practical ways. And Magen David Adom is one of those organizations that deserves our support as Christians.
There are many ways that you can support Magen David Adom through Christian Friends of Magen David Adom.
We can give our time and energies, we can give our money.
And you can give blood.
You can come to Israel and participate in some of our saving operations.
There's an old saying in the Jewish world that if you save one life, you save the world.
Your support today is vital.
Join us in blessing Israel.
And it's quite amazing to think that as Christians, one way that we can stand with Israel and the Jewish people is by supporting Magen David Adom. And you can see some of the great work being done by Christian friends of Magen David Adom. Daniel, I have to ask you, we're developing a real friendship, and I suppose over the last 10 years, those walls between Christians and Jews have really broken down. What does it mean for you and your organisation to have such strong supporters such as Barbara and others, and have a new organisation, Christian Friends of Magen David Adom, to support the excellent work you're doing?
Oh, I think it's just absolutely wonderful that we can work together focusing on the ambulance service and saving lives in Israel. A little anecdotal story for you. When I started here 3 years ago, there was a small handover with my predecessor, and he was due to go up and or virtually dedicate by poster, I should say, the Christian Friends of Magen David Adom's Bloodmobile up at Kingsway Church in Liverpool. But he was taken ill, and this was literally 1 week into the job. So off I went on the train up there to Liverpool to meet the community and to speak as well. Within 3 or 4 days of being in the organisation. And I still remember that more than anything, not just because it was the first time I was exposed publicly to Magen David Adom, but because of the overwhelming warmth in the room I personally got when I saw that there were real, true friends of Israel there. And what I really liked about it was the Liverpool Jewish community rallied around and supported this event as well. And it was with immense pride. And I really mean that I was able to dedicate this vehicle and stand there talking to the group.
And Barbara, what does it mean for you to actually support Magen David Adom? Because we've all got different gifts, we've all got different talents, and I'm sure there's others that have different callings and different focuses, but to actually help Israel's medical services, particularly as Israel has to respond to the likes of missile and rocket attacks, terror attacks, which is pretty unique in the world.
It is. Well, as you said, Simon, I'm involved with a number of ministries and organisations which support Israel, but Magen David Adom is very close to my heart, and there are really two main reasons. First of all, I think it's saving lives, and we know that every single human life is important to God, that we are all made in his image, and to save one life, there's a Jewish expression, if you save one life, you save the world. So it's a very worthy organisation to be involved with. And I think also as a Christian, I love mixing with Jewish people. We learn so much from them. We've got a lot of the Bible we share. And Magen David Adom is a great way of doing it. In my role with Christian friends, I get to meet lots of Jewish people. We have events together, and I encourage lots more people to get involved.
No, I think it's very enriching. I've certainly loved having Jewish friends and Israeli friends, and having Jewish guests on the Middle East Report. Daniel, I'll come back to you on this one. The situation that Israel faces is pretty unique in the world. I mean, going back to almost 10 years to the Second Intifada, when we saw wave and wave of suicide bombings, attacks, bombs going off in coffee shops with suicide bombers exploding their belts, into restaurants, shopping malls, the like. Very horrendous situation. And yet Magen David Adom were there on the front line. Can you explain to me how the paramedics would prepare themselves for such a crisis, such as terror attacks, or now Israelis facing rocket and missile attacks in Israel?
As frontline staff, again, it's very hard. They have the bare essentials on the ambulances to protect themselves, but let's face it, a bulletproof helmet is not going to protect from a rocket coming over. There are stations that we build around the country, and as well as this, we have vehicles that are specifically armoured as much as they can be to protect both the patients and the staff. And actually, Kiryat Shimona in the north, which is a project that is being undertaken partly by the Christian Friends of to refurbish it, is desperately in need of a refurbishment because it's right on the Lebanese border, and the rockets are very able to land into the car park and land on the roof and destroy the stations. So this money is essential to protect the lives and to protect the maintenance and the upkeep and the running of that station and that region.
And Barbara, I mean, Israel, like I said just prior, faces pretty much unique situations in the world. I mean, facing an existential threat from Iran, facing the rocket and missile threat from Hezbollah, has something like 60,000 rockets and missiles targeted all over Israel. Hamas has something like 20,000 missiles targeted on Israel. It is so important that Christians are aware of Israel's unique situation and how they can actually respond and help to any future crisis that Israel may face in the coming months or years.
Yes, I think it's very important. I think most people who read the Bible should have a love for Israel. We owe Israel, we owe the Jewish people as Christians so much. The Bible is theirs, patriarchs are theirs, the prophets, the apostles, of course, supremely for us Christians, Jesus. Let's stand with Israel. I love the book of Esther. Let's not be silent, but for such a time as this.
Absolutely, and we've got another really good clip to go to, and this clip will touch your heart, as it's a very, very powerful clip, and just shows you such important work being carried out by Magen David Adom. And let's not forget that this organisation is not funded by the Israeli taxpayer, but through donations in Israel and around the world.
אנחנו שולחים. שניים מדלתא.
We're driving out to an 88-year-old who is experiencing chest pains. So we're going there to check it out.
מגן דוד שלום, אנו. בסדר?
I've been a paramedic for almost 2 years. In September, it's going to be 2 years. I came straight in as a paramedic after I finished my bachelor's in emergency medicine in Beersheba. My big dream was to be a doctor. My dad was a doctor. And when you grow up with a doctor in the house, I think you get very into the whole medical field.
A young lady appears to be unconscious. We don't know yet what's her condition.
It's not that we're training our people only. We are trying to train the population. If we have more first responders in the community, then I know that we can save more lives. What you have to do in order to gain control of a mass casualty incident, we're going to give you tools so you can save more lives.
Basically, it was the day before my sister's wedding. My father and sister went to get coffee for my family. My dad said, you need an escort, you need someone to drive for you. So he went with her, and they said on the radio that there was a pigua, a bombing on Emek Fame Street where my dad and sister went. So I went with my brother. We drove there immediately because we knew that they were going to be in Cafe Hillel on that street. I saw my sister being taken into the ambulance, and they didn't let me go on the ambulance with them, so I didn't know where they were going. We just all said we'd meet in Shaare Zedek and we'd wait there for them to come. And then we were just sitting there waiting a couple of hours, and then they told us over there that, first they told us that my father was killed, and then they told us that Nava was killed, and that was that. And that's basically it. Instead of a wedding, we had a funeral.
We get in Tel Aviv metropolitan approximately 300 calls in 24 hours. You can imagine how stretched we are. If we could get more help, then we would be able to do much more.
We are going to an accident on the road. We had a report of 3 wounded. 2 of them are okay. 1 of them is not so good. הנה, הנה, בצד השני. ירד. יש גם צווארון. שימי! מה קרה, גברת? כן? הוא מגיב? כן. כן? שנייה, שנייה.
After the death of my father and my sister, I don't want to ever be in a situation where there's someone next to me who needs help and I can't do anything. It's amazing to see how MADA is working now with their equipment and everything, and to think that my father had a big piece in it is, that's what pushed me.
As we can see in that clip, some of the incredible work and a little bit of an insight into the incredible work being carried out by Israel's medical services, particularly Magen David Adom. Barbara, there must be many Christians who are watching this program who work in our medical services and doing a tremendous job. My wife's a nurse. I know there'll probably be paramedics and doctors and nurses watching this program. How can they get involved with the work of Christian friends of Magen David Adom?
Well, people who are medically trained can always do a conversion course and perhaps go and volunteer in Israel. They have to be trained. But anyone can get involved by helping to fundraise, helping to support our promotional events for Christian friends of Magen David Adom. Let's aim high. People could get together to save for an ambulance. Perhaps there's a church that supports Israel, a community group, a family, perhaps even Revelation TV. Save up for an ambulance. A little less, perhaps a motorbike. Or I've got in front of me these Zadaka boxes, which are used, typically goes back to pre the State of Israel, people saving money in a tin like this. If anyone would like them, please contact us and we'll be happy to send one out. It all helps.
Excellent. And how can people with a medical background really help, Daniel? I'm sure that in Israel they'll be needing paramedics and doctors and nurses to respond to such crises.
Of course. As Barbara rightly said, there is a conversion course, a very small course that needs to be done just to make sure that people are qualified and understand and can go out there on shift and help save lives. Best thing to do is to get into contact with us, and we will then pass those details on to the relevant people in Israel.
Excellent. And can also share some of the humanitarian work that you're doing, because we saw that awful typhoon actually hit the Philippines, Typhoon Haiyan, which has caused devastating impact. And yet, with the Israeli Defense Force, the Israeli government, and now also Magen David Adom are also helping with the supply effort, emergency effort.
That's right. When this hit, we, as Magen David Adom UK, felt we had to do something. We felt obligated to, and we work with a medical partner, International Health Partners, who have a Queen's Award for Export Initiative and list Prince Charles as its patron. And IHP asked us to fund £10,000 worth of emergency doctors' packs. Now, these packs have a street value of £150,000 worth of medicine. And the idea is that doctors, people volunteering as well, can just take one or two of these packs and go off and help. But we sent a pallet load on a plane, and within 24 hours of the typhoon striking, we'd spoken to IHP, and within a further 72 hours, these goods were being air freighted straight to where they were needed.
That's fantastic. And also, you're also doing first aid training here in the UK as well. So your focus is not only Israel, but also international, and there's also domestic element to your work.
Yeah, that's right. There's three prongs to Magen David Adom UK. our core is always Israel, supporting Magen David Adom in Israel. Then we have specific donors who have the vision for wanting to support the international work and provide humanitarian aid, such as to the Philippines. And then in the UK, we feel we want to give something back to the community. And we do that in a very simple way. We provide free first aid training.
Okay, and here we got some, there you go, I'm just holding up one of the first aid packs here.
Well, this is the kit. Anyone can have a free first aid kit. All you have to do is email us or call us and we will send you a kit. This is something that's perfect to keep in the glove compartment or the bathroom cabinet. But what it will do also is promote the work that we're doing to provide first aid training within the UK. And there's no catch. Anyone can go on a course.
Excellent. And can you read the email address for us? So those of you who actually want to get a free first aid kit, it's probably not a bad idea to have one in your car, and certainly have one in your home.
Of course, the email to contact us on is info@mdauk.org.
Or you can get information on the website. Also, we're talking about these very, very important issues, and it's so important to kind of stand with Israel, support Israel. But the one thing I liked about doing this program, and certainly when I went to the annual dinner of Magen David Adom, was the incredible way that Magen David Adom is helping to save lives in Israel, but also the impartiality of Israel's emergency service. Maybe, Dan, you can share something about this, because getting more familiar with the work that you are actually doing, hearing some of the stories, for example, in the last Intifada, the suicide bombings and the terrorists, that the ambulance staff would go also not only treat the Israeli victims of terror, but also the terrorists themselves. And that surely speaks volumes about the incredible work and the value system of Magen David Adom.
Oh, absolutely. I think you've summed it up very nicely. The people that work for Magen David Adom and have a passion for what they do very, very strongly believe that it's saving lives over and above all else. The politics, the views, who's done what goes out of the window at that point. They are there to save the lives. And our donors in the UK, for example, are passionate about building capital projects such as ambulance stations in Israeli Arab towns, in Druze villages, and across Israel. So we have a very, very broad-minded community, I would say, here. And I think we're fortunate with that.
And we've got a last clip of the programme to go to, and it shows why Magen David Adom is so important in responding to future terror attacks in Israel, and certainly the threat of rocket and missiles attacks that could have an impact on Israel's population.
בוקר טוב ישראל, נתחיל בחדשות חמות הנוגעות לחוסר היציבות במזרח התיכון. נראה כי ברגעים אלו איראן וסוריה מקדמות חזית מאוחדת תחת פיקוד גנרלים משתי המדינות.
השאיפות הגרעיניות של איראן לא הופרעו כלל על ידי הסנקציות הבינלאומיות. למעשה, הקול האיראני נעשה חזק ואגרסיבי יותר.
Now the threat to my country cannot be overstated. Those who dismiss it are sticking their heads in the sand.
And sadly, that clip isn't beyond the realm of reality or imagination, as Israel faces the threat of missiles and rockets from Hamas, and also Hezbollah. Explains why this work is so important. Barbara, we're down to the last few minutes of the programme, sadly, but can you share with us some of the work of Christian Friends of Magen David in supporting the ambulance service in Nazareth, of all places?
Well, my colleagues in the north of England have done a wonderful job, Peter McGowan and his team. They've already raised money for 2 ambulances. As you say, the second one is in Nazareth, which for us Christians is very important, the hometown of Jesus, and a bloodmobile as well, which collects blood. On our database in the UK, we have about 500 Christian friends. So obviously there's great potential for more people to get involved. So please get in touch with us.
Excellent. And Daniel, what do you need moving forward? Because, I mean, Magen David Adom is one of the more established Jewish organisations, has a great support not only here in Britain but around the world.
The short answer? Money. There is never going to be enough money to support this organisation. The population of Israel is growing massively, and we need to be able to grow and respond to those needs, whether that be from the Jewish or the Christian community. And to that extent, last week, Barbara and I have been conducting interviews, and we are going to now be recruiting for the first time a dedicated Christian Friends of Magen David Adom UK fundraiser in our office to help exactly with that.
Excellent. And Barbara, this is a great opportunity, isn't it? I know that you work very closely with the Jewish community, but to actually get alongside the Jewish people, to actually work alongside a cause that's so important and so valuable in saving all Israeli lives, be they Jews or Arabs or Christians.
Absolutely. We believe in blessing everyone, helping everybody. And we have fun too. Okay, we might be fundraising, but it's a wonderful opportunity to work together with our Jewish friends for a very worthwhile cause. I think, as I said, every life is precious.
Yeah. And Daniel, do you have a message for our viewers?
I think it's to say that this is a wonderful cause. It is such an integral part, and perhaps what I haven't said is it's an integral part of society, and 90% of its workforce is voluntary. So we talk about them putting their lives on the line. They're doing it voluntarily. They're not even being paid for that.
Which is excellent. So I want to thank you both for being my guests here on the Middle East Report and explaining some of the very important work being carried out by Magen David Adom, which is Israel's national emergency service.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
And I want to thank you all for watching today's programme as we focused on Israel's national emergency service, Magen David Adom, that save all lives in Israel. And unlike any other emergency service, they have to respond to the threat of rocket and missile attacks, from the daily threat of terrorism that Israel face, and also possibly an existential threat from Iran. So it's very important that we support organisations like Magen David Adom, who are actually saving lives, and now there is Christian Friends of Magen David Adom. So it means that it's so much easier for all of us to get involved. And I want to thank you for watching today's programme, and we're going to leave you with this song that looks at the beauty of Israel and the beauty of Israeli life and why life is so precious in Israel.